Welcome to the Safety Culture Onboarding Series. In this video, we're covering template training, where we'll talk about the template builder, customizing the report layout, and configuring access rules. Now let's jump into the template builder demo in the Safety Culture web app. There are a few ways to create a template, as we can see on the top here. From scratch, from our public library, AI prompt, or uploading an existing document. While uploading an existing document will get you around 70 to 80% of the way there, you'll still have to make adjustments to things like scoring, sections, logic, etc. We'd always recommend trying to build a template from scratch from a learning perspective, because this is when you'll discover the full capabilities of the template builder. But for this video, we'll use the public library feature. So now I'll click the Find a Pre-made Template, and we'll set the filter to Manufacturing, as I've done here. And then now that we see those templates appear on our left, we'll find the Manufacturing Workplace Inspection template. So now what we see on the screen is a template builder. We'll go ahead and hit Edit. And on the left-hand side, you'll see the canvas. On the right-hand side, you'll also see the mobile preview. There are a few things I'd like to highlight at this point. You can rename your inspections title, and you can also add a brief description of what the checklist is. Next is what pages and sections are. In the simplest terms, you can group questions into sections and sections into pages. We'd recommend you do this especially when creating particularly long checklists, as we can see lower on down here, because it breaks up your checklist into more manageable chunks, which helps your users navigate it more easily. So inspections can be scored as a whole, per page, or per section. So looking at the first question under Audit, let's say we wanted to move these questions around. By simply picking these 6 dots, we could drag and move these questions around. The next thing we could do is add a section. So here, the Add Section button, let's say we wanted to add a section to this inspection or this template and name it Floor 1. And then we could also drag and drop a question underneath it. So let's say the location, we wanted to move that under the Floor 1, and let's maybe say we wanted to move the client and site under Floor 1 as well. With this functionality, again, it's showing us the creativity of moving the questions themselves around. So the next thing I want to highlight here is the title page, as we can see at the top. The title page is usually the first page when you see on the screen, and it's a very important part of your template builder, because not only does it contain the relevant information you'll see on the front page of your completed report, but it also has any questions on the title page that will be available to be selected for the inspection title. In practicality, you can use the title page to customize your file names, and once you sort and even download completed inspection reports. It is the best way to make sure each report has a unique ID for easier sorting. Details, as we can see here, like site, date of inspection, and who conducted the inspection, are usually added here. Depending on your needs, you can also include things like we have, like location and document numbers. Now that we have our questions ready, let's talk about the different types of response sets. The first thing we'll do is click on our question here and show all the different response sets. The first we see on the top left are our multiple choice responses. These are preset response sets that you can always customize by clicking the pencil icon on the right. So clicking this pencil icon in the yes, no, or not applicable, we could update those to kind of change those responses across the board. It's important to note though that any changes made to these multiple choice response sets will change for all questions on this template that use that response set. So if you scroll down a bit, you'll see the global response sets here. These work exactly like a multiple choice, but creating it as a GRS allows you to use one response set in multiple different templates. Any changes you make will also change on the templates that use that global response set. We've seen these used in a great way to manage employee lists for employee evaluations, or something like serial numbers for machine inspections. On the right-hand side are other types of responses you can use. The first would be our title pages. For example here, I could update the response type for the client and site to just be site. So if we go down to client site here, I could update this to just be site itself. And below them are other types of responses you could use for the template. You could use response types like numbers, media, and even instruction, which is great for communicating SOPs or describing gold standards to your team. One important thing to remember here is to stay away from using the text answer as much as possible, because insights from text responses are difficult to be tracked later in analytics. If it is possible to use a multiple choice response set, we expect you to use it. Now let's talk about logic. We use logic for things like follow-up questions, mandatory evidence, mandatory actions, and notifications. keeping in mind that notifications could be site-based. So let's dive into actually adding logic. So we'll go ahead and click Add Logic here, and let's change this to if the answer is no, and let's trigger create an action or require an action. So building off that, let's go build more logic, and then on if the answer is yes, then let's trigger and ask a question, and on the contractor's name. The next thing we'll talk about here is required. So within any of these questions, we can make this field required so that within the inspection it needs to be completed to be saved. The last thing we'll talk about here are flagged responses. Flagged responses are a great way to keep track of gaps, improvement opportunities across your business, and especially as you review trends later that you'll see in analytics. As we scroll down, there's also an option for adding an approval workflow at the end of any template. You can activate it at any time, and it defaults, as we see here, to including the date and time of approval and the approver signature. You can also add any of our standard questions and response types to the approval workflow. Where this comes in handy is for audits that may require review or approval from other people in the business, such as a manager or supervisor before you close out the audit. Automated approvals take away the need to have something physically signed or to have you send an email or to make a phone call before work can progress. Once you've finished building your template, don't forget to hit publish. Now that we've built the template, we're going to create a report. So on the top here, we can go to the report tab. The first thing we'll talk about is the inspection title. This is important for keeping an account organized, and you're going to want more information than just a date and time and user for the inspection title. So the first thing we'll do here is clicking this pencil next to the manufacturing workplace inspection checklist. We'll go ahead and pick and add a few items. The first thing we'll add is the audit title, and we can also add the conducted on, and we can add anything else here. Let's add prepared by as well. We'll go ahead and hit save. Now we can see that on the web preview or the PDF preview, all that information now is saved on the report itself. The next thing we'll do is go to the report preferences. On the left-hand side here, within the layout and inspection details, we can toggle on and off basic flags and items that we want to be seen on the report itself. So looking at the example here, say we wanted to turn off flagged items, we could toggle that on and off, and we can see that live in flight on the right-hand side. Also, if we wanted to turn off and on actions, we can do that as well. There are really two key things we want to direct your attention to in this space. First, that you have the ability to create custom report layouts, and these can be applied to all templates or just one specific one. Or two, when customizing that report layout on the left, you can select what elements of an inspection you'd like to surface. Example would be those flagged items, the actions, the scores, or the media. Now we'll move on to the last tab at the top here named Access. This is where you'll see why it's so imperative to set up groups and sites correctly at the start, which was covered in part 2 of the admin training in this series. On this screen, there are two things that will need to be set up correctly. Who can use the template to conduct inspections, and also who can view and edit or delete the inspection report. So let's click the Edit Rules and create a new access rule. This will pop up a window on the right-hand side here that we see, and we'll have the ability to choose who this template is available to and which inspection results will be available to those people as well. Let's go ahead and say this template is available to a site or a group. Let's pick a group, and let's pick all users SC Manufacturing. We'll click Done. And let's say these inspection results need to be a bit more specific on who they're viewable to. Let's just pick myself for this example. We could go ahead and click Done, and that would set up those access rules on who can actually view and edit that template itself, as we can see here. You can also choose to set this up for individual users, though we don't recommend doing this because it's not sustainable long term. Here you can see how the Safety Culture Template Builder can be flexible depending on how complex your checklist requirements are. Again, thanks for joining, and we look forward to seeing you in the next video.